They say a man's home is his castle. But here in Australia, any bloke who works for a living knows the truth. Your ute is your real fortress. It's not just a car. It's your office, your lunchroom, and your livelihood all rolled into 4 wheels and a tray. I'm a sparky by trade. I spend 60 hours a week crawling through roof cavities that are hotter than a shearer's armpit, chasing wires just to pay off the mortgage in Western Sydney. And my 2023 Ford Ranger? That's the only thing keeping the lights on, literally. I keep it spotless. Tools organised, cab clean. Rule number 1 in my house has always been simple. Nobody drives the Ranger but me. Not my apprentice, not my mates, and definitely not my wife, Beck. She's got her little Mazda 3 for the shopping runs. But we all know that rules are made to be broken, especially when the happy wife, happy life card gets played. It was a Saturday morning. I was looking forward to a cold beer and the footy later when Beck walked into the kitchen with that look. You know the one? The I need a favour look. "Jack, babe," she started, pouring me a coffee. "Mum needs to do some landscaping. She bought 20 bags of mulch and soil, but they won't fit in my hatch. Can I please take the ute for a few hours?" My gut reaction was instant. No way. Throwing dirty bags of fertiliser into my clean tray? Letting someone else navigate that beast through traffic? But then I looked at her. We'd been married 5 years. Things had been a bit quiet lately. I was working too much. She was bored. I thought, don't be a stingy prick, Jack. It's just a car. Help her out. "All right," I said, tossing her the keys. "But be careful. And for God's sake, don't scratch the rims." She kissed me on the cheek. A bit too quickly, I thought later, and said, "You're the best. I'll be back by Arvo." If I had known where those keys were actually going to take her, I would have thrown them into the nearest storm drain. She said, "Arvo," but the sun was well and truly down by the time I heard the distinct rumble of the Ranger's diesel engine coming up the driveway. It was pushing 7 p.m. I was already 3 beers deep and a bit annoyed, thinking about how my Saturday was gone. I walked out to meet her, expecting to see dust on the tailgate and maybe a few stray wood chips in the tray. You know what mulch is like. It gets everywhere. It smells earthy, pungent. But when Beck hopped out, she was grinning like a Cheshire cat. "All done," she chirped, handing me the keys. She even had a 6-pack of my favourite IPA in her other hand. A peace offering? Or a guilt offering? "Thanks, babe," I said, taking the beers. "Load heavy?" "Oh, not too bad," she replied, breezy as you like, and headed straight for the shower. "I'm just going to wash off the garden dirt." I walked around the back of the ute to check the tray. And that's when the first alarm bell rang in my head. It was spotless. I don't mean swept out clean. I mean vacuumed at the expensive car wash clean. The rubber mat in the tray was shining. There wasn't a single grain of sand, not one piece of bark. Who the hell spends $20 at a car wash after hauling manure for their mother? Weird, I muttered. But I let it slide. Maybe she was just being nice, trying to return my pride and joy in mint condition. I opened the driver's door to move the truck into the garage. I threw my right leg in, expecting my knee to brush the steering column like it always does. I'm 6'2". I keep that seat all the way back usually. But this time, my foot didn't even reach the pedals. Wait, no, that's wrong. Beck is 5'0". When she drives, the seat is usually jammed so far forward her nose is practically touching the windscreen. But the seat wasn't forward. It was pushed all the way back. And the backrest? It was reclined. Like really reclined. Almost flat. I sat there in the dark cab, the smell of cheap vanilla air freshener hitting my nose. Another thing I never use. My heart started thumping against my ribs like a jackhammer. Why was the seat back? Why was it laid flat? Unless someone else drove it, someone tall, or unless they weren't driving at all. I looked up at the windshield. Right behind the rearview mirror, blinking a slow, steady red light, was my Blackview 4K Dashcam. Beck isn't tech-savvy. She thinks it just records accidents. She forgets it has a parking mode. And she definitely forgot that last week I turned on the interior microphone. I pulled the SD card out with trembling fingers. I walked into my study, clutching that tiny piece of plastic like it was a live grenade. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it into my keyboard. I didn't even crack the beer she gave me. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a bag of cement. I plugged it into the adapter and waited. The folder popped up. Dozens of 3-minute clips. I started with the timestamp, 10:15 a.m., departure. I watched the 4K footage on my big monitor. There she was, driving out of our quiet suburban street. She was driving careful, I'll give her that. Both hands on the wheel. 10:30 a.m. She passes the big Bunnings at Minchinbury. Wait, if she's getting mulch for her mum, Bunnings is the only place open on a Saturday that sells the specific brand she wanted. But she didn't turn in. She blew right past the entrance. Where the hell was she going? I clicked the next file. 10:45 a.m. She's on the M4 motorway, heading west, away from her mum's place, away from the garden centres. Towards the Blue Mountains? No, she took the exit for Penrith, but not the nice part near the river, the industrial side. My cursor hovered over the volume icon. Usually, I keep the audio recording off. Nobody wants to hear themselves singing along to Cold Chisel on the way to a job site. But after that dodgy bloke tried to claim I reversed into him last month, I switched the cabin mic to on. I took a breath and clicked unmute. The sound was crystal clear. The hum of my all-terrain tyres, the indicator clicking, and then her voice. But she wasn't talking to herself. She was on speakerphone. "I'm 2 minutes away, baby. Is the room unlocked?" My blood ran cold. She never calls me baby. I'm Jack, or hun. A male voice crackled back through the speakers. Deep, larrikin accent. Familiar. "Yeah, door's open, Dal. Park round the back so nobody sees the truck. I got the beers on ice." "Davo," she whispered. I knew that voice. It wasn't just some random guy. Davo was the bloke who did our concreting last summer. The bloke I shared a crate of beer with in my own backyard. Then I watched on the screen as my pride and joy pulled into the gravel lot of the highway motel. The engine cut, but the recording didn't stop, because my Dashcam runs on a backup battery for parking mode, and it kept listening. The video feed was boring, just the red brick wall of Unit 4 at the highway motel. But the audio? It was like listening to a radio play from hell. The passenger door creaked open. Heavy boots hit the floor mat. My floor mat. "G'day, gorgeous," Davo's voice boomed. It was followed by a sound that makes your skin crawl when it's your wife wet, sloppy kissing. Smacking lips. A giggle. "You bring the truck?" Davo asked, shutting the door. The cab went quiet for a second, insulated from the highway noise. "Yeah," Beck said. Her voice was different. Breathless. Excitable. A tone she hadn't used with me since our honeymoon in Bali. Told him I was hauling mulch for Mum. He didn't even blink. Just worried about his precious rims. They both laughed. A cruel, mocking laugh. "He's a good bloke, Jack," Davo said, cracking open a can. I heard the hiss. "But he's a bit thick, ain't he? Working 6 days a week to pay for a house he's hardly ever in." "Don't talk about him," she whispered. "Let's just relax for a bit. The aircon in here is better than the room." And then came the sound that explained everything. Whirr. The electric motor of the driver's seat. "Jesus, he's got this forward," Davo grunted. "Let's make some room." Whirr. He was moving my seat back. He was getting comfortable in my driver's seat. And then another mechanical whir the recline function. "That's better," he groaned. "Plenty of legroom in these new Rangers." Plenty of room for everything," Beck purred. I sat there in my office, staring at the screen, listening to the rustle of clothes and the clinking of belt buckles in the cab of my own ute. They didn't even go into the motel room straight away. They desecrated my sanctuary first. I stopped the video. I couldn't listen to the next part. I didn't need to. I knew exactly why the seat was flat. I sat in silence for a long time. The rage was there, boiling like molten copper, but underneath it was a cold, hard resolve. She thought I was thick. She thought I was just a dumb tradie wallet. Well, tomorrow morning, she was going to find out just how sharp this Sparky really is. I didn't sleep a wink. I sat in the lounge room in the dark, staring at the wall, listening to her snoring in our bed. By the time the sun came up over the fence, I had a plan. I walked into the kitchen and put the kettle on. Normal Sunday routine. Bacon and eggs on the stove. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to think she'd gotten away with it. She walked in around 8 a.m, looking groggy but happy, wearing my old footy jersey. "Morning, babe," she yawned, reaching for a coffee. Smells good. I turned around, spatula in hand. I looked her dead in the eye. How's the back? I asked. Must be sore after lifting all those bags of mulch yesterday. She didn't even flinch. A professional liar. Oh yeah, it's a bit stiff, she said, rubbing her shoulder. Mum's garden was a mess, but we got it all done. She says thanks for the truck, by the way. That's funny, I said, my voice flat, because I was just updating my ATO logbook for tax time, for the business expenses. Her hand froze halfway to her mouth with the mug. The Ranger has a GPS tracker built into the Dashcam, Beck. It logs every stop, every start, every location. I took a step closer. The kitchen went deadly silent. So, I'm confused. The log says the truck left here at 10:15, but it never went to your mum's house in Blacktown. Instead, it parked at the Highway Motel on the Great Western Highway. For 3 hours. Her face went pale. Ghostly white. She opened her mouth to speak, to spin another yarn, maybe say she met a friend for lunch. But I cut her off. I pulled the SD card out of my pocket and slammed it onto the granite benchtop. It made a sharp clack. And before you lie again, I whispered, leaning in close, remember that I turned the cabin microphone on last week. I heard Davo. I heard the seat moving back. I heard everything. The coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Hot coffee splashed everywhere, but neither of us moved. She started with the waterworks immediately. The crocodile tears, the sobbing, it meant nothing, Jack. It was a mistake. I watched her cry for about 10 seconds. It didn't move me. It was just noise, like a drill whining against a stripped screw. A mistake is forgetting to put the bin out, I said calmly. A mistake isn't reclining the seat of my truck with a bloke named Davo while I'm at home paying the bills. I pointed to the door. You wanted to go to your mum's so badly yesterday? Well, congratulations. Now you can go there for real. Pack a bag. Get out. She tried to argue, tried to grab my arm, but I just walked past her and opened the front door. I stood there until she grabbed her keys, her Mazda keys, and walked out. She was still crying when she reversed out of the driveway. I didn't wave, I just locked the door. As for Davo, I didn't go round there and punch him. That's how you lose your license and your job. Instead, I simply emailed that little audio clip to his wife. Last I heard, Davo is living in a caravan park down near the sewage treatment plant. Calm as a bitch, mate. I sold the Ranger the next week. I couldn't drive it anymore. Every time I sat in that seat, I thought about, I traded it in for a Land Cruiser. Brand new. Leather seats. And yeah, I installed a Dashcam. But this time, it's just for the insurance. Because now, the only person driving my truck is me. And honestly, the cab has never been quieter. Remember, lads, you can scrub the floor mats, you can spray the air freshener, but technology doesn't lie. If something feels off, check the tape. Cheers.